July 22nd, cleaning out this bean bin. Hopefully should have about half a truckload. We're getting there. Over to the trap, probably good enough. Alright, we're all clean. Got a nice workout, as you can see, on my two-tone shirt. I just need to get the sweep auger and motor and the rest of the stuff out of here and get the truck taken to town, take the auger down, and figure out what's next. Got the last of the beans taken to town. So now that we've got that bin empty, get to switch the gearbox back. Basically, reverse what I did before. Pull 4 bolts there, and the ones underneath that are kind of a pain, flip her over, switch the vent with the plug on the bottom, and then we'll be ready to load out corn or whatever else we need to do. I don't have any more corn sold right now. I'm waiting for it to go down some more. There is still some in the bins, but there's not really any very good bids for July, so probably anything that I move is going to be August at this point, it looks like, unless we get some chances next week or something, or some short-term opportunities. But going to get things switched back so it's ready to go anyway. So this is usually the fun part, is getting these screws started up into the bottom of the gearbox, because you kind of have to wiggle it, and if you cross thread them, then that's a problem because the bolts don't come out at all. So then you just have to clean up the threads with a file. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything. So basically just need to get those started, get that tightened down, put that shield back on top, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. We did lose a little bit of oil in switching that breather around, but I think it's probably a little overfull. I will pull this plug out and check to see what that oil level is like. It is on a little bit of a slope, so it's going to kind of want to run out if it's at, normally you want that kind of at the bottom of the plug, I think. But it definitely has oil in it, so I'm not too concerned. But you might ask why it doesn't just have plugs everywhere, and you need to have a breather usually because with temperature fluctuations from the weather, that means that the air inside the gearbox will expand and contract, and there's rubber seals on all the shafts that go in and out, and you don't want to blow those out because then you can't keep oil in the gearbox. But not too big of a deal, just kind of an annoyance because we have to switch it just for that one bin. that should be good to go. Just need to find a oil can to hit those bearings, and it'll be time for lunch, I think. Well, we're going to go on a little bit of an adventure here. I'm going to try to do a little bit of mowing around some of this stuff. This is what used to be a cattle lot, and up until a few years ago was just a complete forest of weeds. But there's some buried treasure out here, so we use a different tractor to mow this stuff. We are getting some grasses more established, but there's a little ways to go, as you can tell by these nice cuckleburs. But since this tractor only gets occasional use, first question is going to be if the battery is up and exactly how much mouse poop is in the cab. Quite a bit. Plenty of coon evidence on the mower itself here. This mower has seen better days. Do not want to stand on it with the blades turning. I was thinking there was a bolt, yes. You get that tightened up. You check the oil in the gearbox. Check the tractor over a little bit, although the tires looked up, so probably it's okay for what I need to do. A few coons live in that corn crib. Well, there she be. Ended up having to bring it back home to get some gas because it appeared to be about out. So I think while we have it here, I'm going to maybe give it a quick once over with the pressure washer and vacuum out the cab and make that a little less of a biohazard possibly. And just kind of check things over and grease the front end and stuff. This tractor gets used about less than 5 hours a year, we'll say. So it doesn't get much use, but we try to take at least somewhat care of it because it has been reliable. I belonged to my grandpa and I think a great uncle maybe or something along those lines previous to that. I ran this tractor a lot in high school mowing thistles and stuff and found a lot of hidden treasure that some of it was not the kindest to it or the mower. Tore up several PTO shafts and things like that on balls of wire and chunks of concrete and everything else that you can imagine hidden in the weeds. It's not the most cherry tractor, but it's usable, I guess we'll say, serviceable. The year-round cab is, I guess, nice in the winter, not so much in the summer, from my recollection. In a previous life, I'm sure that this would have had gear oil in it, but at this point the seals aren't the best, so we just pump her full of gun grease, or at least some. Looks like there's some in there, so it hasn't gone completely dry, but try to make sure that nothing blows up on us. Well, it's far from perfect, but at least you can kind of see out the windows now. And there isn't a complete layer of nice poop in the bottom of the cab, on the floor of the cab. I need to start it up and lift the mower up so I can get to that bolt that's loose, but otherwise I think we're pretty well ready to go. I'm going to open the windows up and kind of let things dry out a little bit. Didn't do a spectacular job cleaning the windows, but at least can see out a lot better than you could before, so I'll be able to at least see what I hit after I find things with the mower blades later. It's Thursday, July 23rd, and we're going to go kind of scout some crops here in a minute. I just opened up the shed So I forgot my camera yesterday evening, but ended up cleaning up the sprayer. Got a old Chem Tote, 265 gallons or whatever they are, that had been cleaned out previously. We'd used it for water to spray with the spot sprayer, I think, or the four-wheeler. And rigged that up as a water supply for the gas pressure washer, so that we could wash this at another farm where there's no electricity and get the sprayer cleaned up without having to worry about having any herbicide close to the garden or volatilize and ding stuff in the garden here at the home place. So I just opened up the doors to kind of try to get some airflow through here to get it dried off a little bit better, because we did that right around dusk yesterday. It's not as clean as I hoped it would be. Probably might have had something to do with doing it later in the day when there wasn't very good light. But at least we kind of have the most of the residue rinsed off, and hopefully most of the ammonium sulfate residue that will cause corrosion. So we're going to walk out and check the corn. I haven't actually walked out in really any of the corn for about 2 weeks at this point. But it looks pretty good from the road. As you can see, we've got tassels and silks, so this will be where the ears are. So pollen and lands on the silks to create the kernels, so that's the reproductive process on a corn plant. Looks like we've got some kind of brown silk, so those have been pollinated. We did have about 2.5 inches or so, I think, last week. We were pretty dry prior to that. And then I've had a few showers this week as well, maybe another 1/2 inch or so. So we're actually in pretty good shape on moisture at this point. It was definitely getting dry prior to that. So pretty happy to catch those rains. Looks like we may have had some coons out here. Could just be green snap from the wind, but there's definitely some stalks down. That one doesn't look chewed on. It's not exactly green snap, it's just broken over. Green snap, it'll break completely normally, I think. We got some ears starting to form. That one's got 2 on it. What do you think, Lizzie? We're gonna make 250? Just for the heck of it, we'll pull an ear off here and see what it looks like. 618 by 36 potentially. I don't know if we would call that one a typical ear exactly, but so looks pretty good, really. That you can tell there's a few kernels. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera setting that I have right now. There's a kernel here and there that seems to have missed pollinating. Not unheard of by any means. And as long as you don't have big portions of the ear that didn't pollinate, those will kind of, the kernels around it will compensate or kind of fill in those gaps to some extent also. But yeah, things look pretty good. Looks like we have some sort of leaf disease starting in on the lower leaves. Upper leaves look pretty clean. Looks like we also, either due to a lack of light or possibly the drought stress, some of the lower leaves are kind of dying back. The corn plant will pull the nutrients out of those up into the plant. Not sure what we're looking at there. Something going on. Little black spots. We have not in the past run any fungicide. Since we got the rain, I'm debating a little bit if it might be worth trying some. This field, and I've got one other field that should have really good yield potential, and the hybrids that I have on them collectively have a pretty good response to fungicide, so it might be worth putting some on. The risk you run is spending a bunch more money and then not having enough of a response to, even if you get additional bushels, cover the cost of those bushels. I need to look back at a map and probably count rows to figure out where my varieties change. I I had some flags out here, but it's pretty hard to see those flags once the corn gets this big. Anyway, things are looking good. The Indras should be a different variety, which it looks like it maybe has a little less leaf disease than that one spot we were in. Again, upper leaves look good at this point. As long as you have the upper leaves healthy, usually that's the ones that kind of do the last of your ear fill. So this spot looks better than, maybe I was just in a spot where there was a little bit more disease pressure for some reason, or we could be into a different hybrid on the main rows at this point too. So we're scouting some more corn. Talked to a retailer that we work with about maybe running some fungicide, and think we're probably going to try some. So kind of scouting stuff just to see if there's, or decide for sure what we want to do where essentially on that. I'm not planning on doing everything by any means, but kind of checking to see how much disease pressure there seems to be. Like, I have a, I feel, reasonable idea of which hybrids are more susceptible to leaf diseases, and therefore more likely to have a positive response from having fungicide applied to them. So just kind of going around and checking stuff over a little bit to see how things look. So kind of basically what we're looking at is the upper leaves on the plant are the ones that are important, but normally fungal diseases will start lower and then work their way up the plant. And since I'm not an agronomist and have not studied up on the subject lately, I don't know all of the different corn leaf diseases, but basically we're looking at lesions on those leaves. That is probably northern corn leaf blight or gray leaf spot or something like that. This variety tends to be one that has pretty good plant health, I think. We are getting some spots up close to the ear leaf, but not really too bad. So probably this field would not be one that I would initially think I would apply any fungicide to. There are some other fields that have hybrids that have yielded really well without fungicide in the past, but have had some stock quality issues and have the impression that they might yield better and stand better using fungicide. I'm hoping that whatever we do, we'll be able to do at least a little bit of strip stuff to be able to see kind of on the yield maps whether or not the fungicide paid. But kind of looking things over, and then I'm going to have another conversation with the rep from the company that we will probably have apply the fungicide for. Most likely just going to go through a local retailer, which most likely is not the lowest price option, but since we're not doing a huge number of our acres, and it sounds like they can get to it in a timely manner, for 1 year it probably won't be make or break. This is another variety that has pretty good plant health or natural resistance to leaf disease. It does have some spots, I will say, but it actually looks really good for this ground. Kind of this field, I walked across a grass lane there with the camera on, if I don't edit that out. And the other side is much better dirt in general than this side. We're probably in a reasonably good spot in this field at the moment, but this side is a lot more steep and didn't have terraces on it for a long time, so it's eroded and there's not a lot of topsoil left on a lot of the hillsides. We're more on the top of the hill now, so there's probably a little more topsoil here, but things look really pretty good. I mean, we have some lesions on the stalks in certain spots. Getting some silks turning brown. Definitely a lot of pollen. I mean, you can see spots when I walk back through here. I can see kind of pollen on the leaves, or like down in the hairs of the plant there. So things look good. I'm really pleasantly surprised and happy given how dry it was a couple weeks ago for sure. So this field is one that is somewhat more susceptible, and you can see there's quite a few lesions, even one leaf down from the, well, I guess you have the primary ear leaf and then a secondary ear leaf that still look pretty good, but definitely some disease there. It seems like that's kind of all around here at least. So I think this field is going to get some fungicide with some test check strips so that we can see how much difference it made, but definitely some leaf disease here.